Let's take a look at some of the figurative language concepts. Start with alliteration. Alliteration is a term that describes a literary stylistic device. Alliteration occurs when a series of words in a row, or at least close together, have the same first consonant sound. For example, she sells seashells down by the seashore, or Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. These are both alliterative phrases. Hyperbole is an extreme exaggeration used to make a point. Hyperboles can be found in literature and oral communication. They would not be used in nonfiction, such as medical journals or research papers, but they're perfect for fiction, especially if you want to add color to a character or humor to the story. Some examples: I am so hungry I could eat a horse, and I have a million things to do are obvious exaggerations. Similes are one of the most common forms of figurative language and can be found just about anywhere. They are in plays, poems, song lyrics, and even everyday conversations. A simile is a figure of speech that compares two different things in an interesting way. The object of a simile is to spark an interesting connection in a reader's or listener's mind. To help you identify a simile versus a metaphor, know that the words like or as are typically used in a simile. Some examples that we have: as happy as a clam and as light as a feather. Those are both good ones. And another common one that you can easily see is as blind as a bat. Personification is when you assign the qualities of a person to something that isn't human, or in some cases to something that isn't even alive. There are many reasons for using personification. It can be used as a method of describing something so that others can understand it better. It can be used to emphasize a point. It is a commonly used literary tool, and you likely use personification without even knowing it. Our examples here: her life passed her by, the ocean danced in the moonlight. So both the past, that's not an action that a life would actually take, even though it's a phrase that we use often. It's much more of a human action, passing somebody. And danced as well. The ocean wouldn't actually dance. That's much more of a human action. An idiom is a word or phrase that is not taken literally. Some examples that we have: a chip on your shoulder, that means that you're holding a grudge. High as a kite, generally speaking, refers to being on drugs. Sick as a dog means you are very ill. One famous oxymoron is the phrase, the same difference. This phrase qualifies as an oxymoron because the words same and difference have completely opposite meanings, but bringing them together in one phrase produces a verbally puzzling yet engaging effect. The other examples: Great Depression, are not completely opposite, but they're definitely on the opposite ends of the spectrum, at least. And that great would refer to something that's grand and big. Depression would refer to much more like sadness and lowliness, I guess. And so that's Great Depression, definitely an oxymoron. And jumbo shrimp, you see kind of the same principle. Jumbo refers to something large, shrimp refers to something small. Okay, irony. Irony can best be defined as the middle ground between what is said and what is meant, or others' understanding of what was said and what was meant. It can sometimes be a bit confusing, yet at the same time, it can also be amusing. There are several examples of irony, which can be summed up in various categories. In Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, Romeo finds Juliet in a drug state and he thinks she is dead. He then kills himself. When Juliet wakes up to find Romeo dead, she kills herself. So that would be tragic irony. Paradox. Last one. A paradox is a statement that may seem absurd or contradictory, but yet can be true, or at least make sense. Paradoxes are often contrary to what is commonly believed, and so play an important part in furthering our understanding in literature and everyday life. Here are some examples. You can save money by spending it. That doesn't seem to make sense. I know one thing that I know nothing. And another common one is this is the beginning of the end.